Thank you all for joining this webinar on addressing air pollution in African cities. It is brought to you by the Africa Urban Health Community of Practice of the International Society for Urban Health. Amadudo Anyam Ushigwe, a member of the Steering Committee of the Community of Practice for 2024-2025, and moderating this webinar. I hand over to Amy Weinman, co-chair of the Africa Urban Health Community of Practice, to speak about the work we do and how to be part of the community. Over to you.
Great, thank you so much. Can you see my screen? Is that working now?
Okay, it's there.
Great. So thank you very much for all being here. We are very excited to have our second webinar of our webinar series for urban health in Africa, which is being hosted by the Africa Urban Health Community of Practice. This is a community that is also of the International Society for Urban Health. And our overall objectives is that we really want to create a network of like-minded academics, policymakers, as well as other actors in civil society and organizations who are really pursuing urban health on the continent and across the continent for Africa. And so we place quite an emphasis on the early to mid-career researchers, but also really drawing on the wisdom from our senior experts too. And we seek to do knowledge sharing. And in addition to this, we also would like and do provide opportunities for skills development, particularly bringing more information around things like citizen science and the use of those techniques. And then also this is just a platform and an opportunity for establishing connections and collaborations across the continent for urban health. So just to provide an overview of the team that we have a wonderful steering committee for 2025, and this is the range of people who are involved. My colleague Tolu Oni is the fellow co-chair with me. Unfortunately, she was unable to be here today, but she sends her regards. And we are also backed by a wonderful group of volunteer comm support and admin support, and they are fantastic at just making sure that these webinars and our events are up and running. If you would like to stay involved and connected with the African Community of Practice, please do scan the QR code and we can put this up on the screen at the end of the webinar. But for this particular webinar session, I'll hand over to Aduda, who will be able to introduce maybe the speakers, and we'll get stuck into the actual session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. Okay. This webinar on addressing air pollution in African cities examines the growing burden of air pollution in Africa, but more importantly, outlines solutions to address the problem. Fundamentally, we are asking, how do we all on the continent live fulfilling, healthy lives while respecting our environment and preserving its services for future generations? Though, as an addendum to acknowledge the inherent value of nature for nature's sake. We look at this issue through different lenses, and the speakers will also cover the intersections. We have Desmond Appiah, Ghana Country Lead for the Clean Air Fund, Gabriel Okello, Senior Research Associate at the University of Cambridge, Julian Owomugisha, Civil Engineer, Clean Air Advocate, and Research and Advocacy Team Member at Public Square, Waziri Mainasara, Lagos Coordinator and Hub Liaison Officer, UrbanBetter Citizens Hub, Lord Offei-Darko, Accra Coordinator, UrbanBetter Citizens Hub, Maryam Wangeshi, Nairobi Coordinator, UrbanBetter Citizens Hub, John Okwaro, Head of Environment, Vihiga Municipality, Kenya, and founder of Center for Sustainable Mining, Environment, and Climate Change. Each will present for 10 minutes, and afterwards we'll have a Q&A after all their presentations. Please have your questions in the chat. So We'll start off with Desmond, who is a policy expert with 21 years of experience in sustainability across Africa, Europe, and the US. He's currently Ghana country lead for the Clean Air Fund and a member of the technical advisory group for the Air Quality Exchange Project of the CCAC. He was program manager for African cities for clean air at C40 and previously served as Chief Resilience and Sustainability Advisor to the Mayor of Accra. His expertise spans policy design, urban governance, and sustainability strategy. Over to you, Desmond.
Thank you very much, and I'm very glad to join today. I hope you can hear me clearly. And greetings from Accra, where I think the weather has not been so bad to us this past couple of weeks. We are having what they call the coolest times in Accra. August is the coolest time in Ghana. So when you are planning a visit, you can plan for that time. It's a lot cooler. I would be talking about the work that Clean Air Fund has been doing in Accra. I hope, can you see my screen, please? And okay,
yes, we
great.
can.
Okay. And just to give a bit of background as to what we are doing and the work that we've been working on with the city of Accra. So my name is Desmond Appiah, and Clean Air Fund, I'm sure a few of us or many of us know about Clean Air Fund. It was launched in 2019, and our goal is quite straightforward. I usually say to people, our goal is in our name. Our interest is in clean air, but we want clean air for everyone. And so we really love to emphasize the equity aspects of the work that we do to ensure that we support clean air for all. And to be able to deal with air pollution, we look at the threats to human health, the climate, and our environment. And we have over the years been working on funding and partnering with organizations to build data and to also ensure that there's demand for clean air. And as I come to the Ghana space, I think I'll talk a bit about that. And we are also working around the world to influence the decision-making to support clean air. Our theory of change is that we need to build data, ensure that there's evidence which would lead to influencing demand, and then to push policymakers to be able to take action. And it is not just policymakers, but we ourselves. And we've recognized that when there is enough information, we put the data out to people and we establish what the situation is when it comes to air pollution, environmental and economic impact, socioeconomic impact, that can influence the demand for clean air, and that can also influence policymakers. As I mentioned earlier, what we recognized is that in Ghana, for instance, there's very little demand for clean air. And I think that is the same situation across most of our continent, that people are not demanding it. And so there's Clean Air Fund, and for cities, we have a specific program that we are running together with C40 and the Bloomberg Philanthropies, which is the Bridge Cities Initiative. And currently it's in Accra, I'm talking about Africa, Accra, Nairobi, and Johannesburg. But it's also in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and in Europe and the UK. Looking specifically at the Ghana portfolio, our theory of change still premised on the three things that I talked about: the data, driving demand, and also driving policy influencing for action. What we've recognized is that for Ghana, we need to increase availability of data on air quality, because largely most people did not know the status of the air quality. And we've heard this cliche several times that you don't see the pollution in the air. It's so difficult to see it. It's a silent killer. And so we need to be able to establish that there's enough information for all of us to know the state of the air that we are breathing. And then also we want to build the evidence base to drive the decision making. In the long term, what we are calling long term in Clean Air Fund is up to about 2030. We want to see Ghana establishing national air quality targets. There are some policies, there are some specifications, but we want the country to come out clearly to establish targets. We want to also see environmental and climate actions that are based on the high clean air co-benefits. A typical example, Ghana has over 47 national climate action plans. We are working with EPA and the ministry and other donors to establish which of these 47 actions have clear clean air co-benefits, so that when your resources are limited, you will know the kind of interventions that you need to be supporting, that you get the co-benefits. And one of our goals also is to help to reduce waste burning by 30% in Accra, based on the mapping that we've done from 2024. And you see that this is very specific. This is to waste burning. By 2040, the impact we want to be able to achieve is to see that Ghana is working or almost at achieving the WHO interim target 3 for PM 2.5 and NOx. These are the specific targets that we are working towards. We've been in Ghana since 2022, and these are the 4 key areas that we have seen as being areas of concern. The first is that we have seen that there's limited insights into the issues of air pollution. When we put climate issues and we put air pollution, there's a lot more conversations on climate than on air pollution, even though the sources or the causes may be the same: waste, transport, energy, and the like. Then I've put here limited political will to act. And I would like to emphasize here that what we see in Africa is not the lack of political will, which we often hear. It is not the lack of political will. There is political will. It is the political will to act, which you can see when countries and governments are putting resources to the issues. There is a clear difference between the political will and the political will to act. The will is when they go for conferences and they sign to say, yes, we are signed, we agree that there's a challenge and we need to do something about it. So clearly we have the will. The will to act is different. When assigning resources to it, building the capacity, having the structures to deliver. So please, let us in our conversations differentiate between political will and the will to act. I think that there are 2 clear, distinct issues. And then limited demand, as I mentioned, that in most of our countries, our citizens are not pushing for it. We are not asking for it. And so policymakers can get away with it. There's a road construction, there's dust all over the place. We are not demanding that there's activities to ensure that the pollution levels are low. And then the lack of solutions. I think this can sometimes is debatable. People say there are so many solutions. But are the solutions that we are aware of in context, in our environment, in our space that we are in, are they tailored to meet our specific goals? And in Ghana, how we've been working is we started focusing on Accra right at the bottom here, and we've recognized that it is not just an urban challenge, it is a challenge across the country. So part of our goal is we are working in Accra and trying to get to other urban areas, get into the other cities, Accra, Matakra, Tamale, and so that's the direction that we are going. City with a national focus, just so we can be able to build the case. I have listed here a number of the projects that we've been working on, and I'll just take 2 because there are quite a few, but over the years, this is what we've been working on. And I'll take the second one, which is the New Narratives Project, and it was on excellence in clean air reporting. Why did we do this? We were very clear that if there's no demand because there's no reporting on air pollution, you can be working on it. If you are not reporting it, it is not on a discussion point. We need to create the discussion on air pollution so that our populace can become aware that there are issues in the space. So that was one of the projects that we did. I've been very excited about it. We moved from having just about 6 stories in the media space every month to 12 on average, which meant that we were able to push the dial on reporting on air pollution related issues. And we are going to do a phase 2 of that. And then another project that I'll just mention briefly is the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology project, which is on African School for Air Pollution and Air Quality. And it's a summer school that we run. The first year that we did it was just for Ghana. The second year we did it for West Africa, and we had 10 countries in West Africa represented. This year there's a third one, and we are focusing on the whole of Africa, and it's with the Kwame Nkrumah University. The plan of that project is that by the 3rd year, they should have a project running on air pollution at the university. And then there are other projects that we are running. I'm conscious of time. So these are the projects that we are looking to complete this year and next year. And it ranges from not just the scoping, but also specific activities to be able to build the data and also influence policy intervention. So I'll end it here, and I'll say thank you very much, Asante Sana, our colleagues from East Africa, and those who have been in Ghana before Midasi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Desmond. As I mentioned, please have your comments in the chat, and we would have a session for Q&A. So we move on to Gabriel Okello. So Gabriel Okello is an active research expert in human exposure science with specific interest in addressing air pollution in rapidly urbanizing cities in Africa and other low and middle income countries. Gabriel has a broad air pollution assessment and epidemiology background with specific training and expertise in air pollution monitoring and modeling to understand exposure, using exposure feedback as an intervention, integrating evidence to policy and practice, and applying collaborative interdisciplinary research approaches to co-design interventions. Over to you, Gabriel.
Many thanks, Eduardo. Let me share my screen. Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, and turn on the video for those who haven't seen me before. Okay, excellent for me. All right, many thanks for the kind introduction. Yes, I won't go through much about the slide. I just wanted, when I was invited for this presentation, I just wanted to look at the work that I've done on the continent, spanning over 50 cities in about 15 countries, and try and crystallize that into a 10-minute talk. So after that, yes, the audience will be able to see how much justice I've done to that. But again, yes, as Eduardo said, my name is Gabriel Okello. I'm a senior research associate at the University of Cambridge. I'm also the King's Global Sustainability Fellow at the Institute for Sustainability Leadership. I also founded the African Center for Clean Air. Okay, I won't go much about who I am because yes, Eduardo has done a very good intro about that. You know, my interests are assessing effects of air pollution on health and environment, integrating this data to drive policy and practice, as Desmond has been presenting, enhancing access to the data, but also the interpretation of the data. You know, how academics understand the data is different from how policymakers may consume that data, how people within the local communities consume that data as well. And also simplifying air quality interventions for decision makers to, you know, find it easier to make those decisions, those hard or those politically sensitive decisions around air quality. So I need to give a bit of background about the continent. We're rapidly urbanizing, our population is growing. Yeah, there's evidence, there's research that by 2050, 60% of the people will be living in urban areas. So those urban areas will not only be able to determine the economic potential, but also on one part, they'll be able to determine, you know, our health and well-being. And we already have cities on the continent that are having approximately 20 million residents, including Lagos, Kinshasa, if you combine Joburg and Pretoria, Luanda, Cairo. So, you know, we're having this population explode, we're having an urbanization increase. We really need to also have a look at what that comes with. What that has come with is that we're seeing worsening air pollution. An example is one of the pollutants, which is the really fine particles, which we call PM 2.5. These are really fine particles that are in most cases invisible to the eyes. We find that some of the cities where monitoring is taking place, showing that these concentrations are 5 to 10 times more than the average annual recommendations by the WHO. WHO recommends for this type of pollutant to be 5 micrograms per cubic meter across the year. But we're having cities that are recording really high of those examples. Kampala, I'm from Uganda, Nairobi has also shown that areas within Lagos. And this figure just shows how, this is by a group headed by Professor Francis Pope, who I've worked with in the past. So they were using visibility as a proxy to particulate matter pollution. And across three cities, that is Addis Ababa within Ethiopia, Kampala in Uganda, and Nairobi in Kenya. And they found that the visibility has continued deteriorating over the years, over the decades. So what has been the impact of this reduction? We're having approximately 1 million premature deaths every year due to air pollution in Africa. We're having issues around the impact of health, both from short-term health symptoms to long-term health illnesses, right from exacerbation within like asthma to long-term, including cancer and mental health. We're also having impacts around the economy. When people fall sick, they are not as productive as they are when they are healthy. We end up spending to try and treat these ailments. So there's a health cost there, and there's human capital. When you're sick, you miss work, or when someone is sick and you're taking care of them, you're missing work. So there is the big loss there. Then the environmental aspect, where we're having some of the sources of air pollution are driving climate change. We have effects like acid rain. We have issues around energy that I'll mention later that are driving deforestation. All these are within the nexus of air pollution. So just a quick one, 30 seconds. Just name your city and let me know, according to your knowledge, what you think the major sources of pollution are. 30 seconds and I'll time, and after that, we'll just continue. Just pop that into the chat quickly. Let me see the first person to answer. Oh, we already have one. No, yes. Lagos, generators, cars, Cape Town, transport industry, etc. Yes. We still have 20 more seconds. Cigarettes. Lagos transport. Thanks, Waziri. Yes, we have 10 seconds. Don't tell me. Over 30 people. Is it type? Oh, okay. They're coming in. Okay. Coal, transport, car tires, industry. Okay, we will proceed with the presentation. Thanks. Just keep those answers coming. But I think what I wanted to show here is that the sources of air pollution on the continent vary with various cities. And not to say that whatever you've typed is correct, but there is a bit of knowledge behind it, whether it's informed by source apportionment or it's informed by perception. I think that is the main reason for this simple exercise. Let me just shift this. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I wanted to give a bit about the patterns, the sources, and the drivers. So these differ depending on the city, and the patterns are still not similar even within the same city. You have certain times of the day where the air pollution is much, especially, for example, within cities during rush hours, there's air pollution from traffic, as we've seen from the answers. And within certain times, it seems to be lower. Areas near industries, there's pollution from industrial sources. And areas where there's a lot of waste, sometimes there's open waste burning. So I think it's important to understand the major sources around the city if you're to be able to tackle whatever is causing pollution within a city. Within energy, we're talking about crude oil exploration. There are countries that really that are into these activities. So you have that driving up a lot of pollutants, coal mining. We have biomass, which we use for cooking in sub-Saharan Africa. So that is also driving pollution. We have transport-related air pollution. This is as a result of increased importation of pre-owned, old and reconditioned vehicles, from motorcycles, which I love a lot, to matatus, as they say in Kenya, or taxis, to trailers and buses. We also have the problem of waste. As a population is building up and increasing rapidly, we're having issues of building up of waste, both organic and inorganic. As I keep telling the group I research with on e-mobility, we have to be careful that we don't introduce another problem of electronic waste, within the ecosystem. And then industrialization, being driven up by especially the old technologies. Some factories are shifting their manufacturing to the continent, and they come with the obsolete technologies. I think that is a big problem to the continent. I think over the approximately 10 years, in my experience in air pollution, some of the key lessons I've learned is the limited research, especially on our continent. Limited research in understanding exactly what are the sources, how does air pollution behave within our communities, especially on the continent. I think that's a huge problem. I am happy that entities like Clean Air Fund are coming in to fund such initiatives on the continent, so that we can have this data to drive the demand in action. Really pleased about that. The other one, even with the existing work that is going on, we're having a bit of siloed approaches, which is leading to fragmented efforts and reduced effectiveness, which now makes me give a big shout out to the organizers of this webinar. Such platforms are really needed for us to coalesce our ideas, but also exchange ideas and the learnings and the lessons that we have from the different areas in Africa, so that we try to break these siloed approaches. The researchers that are doing this, one of the things I've found is the limited involvement of policymakers. At the end of the day, we have different feelings about our policymakers. At the end of the day, they make these policies, they make these decisions. It's much less painful to involve them at the beginning of these projects than taking to them our results, which they'll probably put in the outbox of their shelves. And also involving the local communities. I'm happy to see, UrbanBetter citizens are here. I heard a lot about their work. I met some of them in Nairobi. I think it is really, really important. I think this is a low-hanging fruit, involving the communities where we're doing the research, to be involved in this research, so that they own it, so that they can demand for the actions when they understand whatever is going on. And then the issue about funding. It's good, Desmond has presented before me, big up to Clean Air Fund for what they are doing. Otherwise, hopefully the number here at the bottom, the 0.01 of the global air action funding be spent in Africa. Hopefully that number increases in the few coming years. There's still quite a bit for us to be at a sweet spot, or an optimal spot where we aspire to be. I think some of the actions that are needed, continuous air quality monitoring. You can't address what you're not measuring, and not only monitoring, but also enhancing the capacity on how people understand the data. Monitoring is good, but how people consume and how people understand the data is really, really key. And I'm happy there are initiatives that are going on, from the African Center for Clean Air to AirCo, AfriSet. If I've not mentioned any initiative that you know of, I couldn't fit all of them here. So continuous monitoring to enable us not only understand the sources, how these sources behave, but also evaluate, the interventions that are the interventions that are being implemented. We need to evaluate whether they are working or not. What are some of the co-benefits? What are some of the unintended consequences? We need to formulate guidelines to be able to have effective management within the cities. There needs to be investment in clean energy and more clean air initiatives. We need to also invest in environmentally friendly technologies and move away from the obsolete technologies. And initiatives could involve tax waivers for cost prohibitive technologies, etc. I can't emphasize more the need for collaboration. For air pollution cannot be solved by one sector. It cannot be solved by one individual. It cannot be solved by one city. I think that's just, there has to be a collaboration among sectors. It does be a collaboration even among the cities themselves, among the communities themselves. It's really, really key. And also the action of waste management. It really needs to be improved within our cities in order to try and address the challenge from the actual source. I provided here a snapshot of some of the initiatives that are ongoing according to different categories around air quality assessment. There are those that are ongoing. If you see the map up here, those are some of the monitoring that is taking place on the continent in different countries. We have in the east of Africa here, Southern Africa, we have Western Africa, Central Africa. But if you look above here, I just didn't want even to put the whole global map. You see the monitors that are up here, just a small space here. So I think those are ongoing, but we need to increase on them. There are air quality standards that are being formulated in different countries. I know Uganda approved theirs last year. Kenya has, I think. There are other countries that are working on them. There are initiatives around transport, around e-mobility, electric buses. Last week in Kenya, we were being picked by an electric bus from our hotel. It really made me proud. There are also initiatives around non-motorized transport, initiatives around the energy transition, hydroelectric, wind energy, solar, and also initiatives around advocacy and policy. We have the UrbanBetter citizens that are really doing a good job in trying to bring this research to the community and trying to work with the community. We have the C40 cities, we have entities like the African Center for Clean Air that are embedding policy within research. And also funding. Funding is important for these initiatives. However good an initiative is, if there is no funding, it becomes a bit of a problem. I just gave 3 examples. I know there are many, but which might not even fit on the slide. But I just gave just a few examples: the Clean Air Fund, the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. There's the EPIC from Chicago, the EPIC program. And just to give a case study, as I'm conscious of time. So one of the work I've been involved in was trying to accelerate e-mobility in Uganda. And I told you about the collaboration. So we had to work with e-mobility startups. We had to work with businesses, logistics businesses that are doing delivery with these motorcycles we call borders, and we had to involve the policy. We had to involve the policy makers as well with the academic partners to try and provide evidence around what switching to e-mobility would look like. We've not yet reached the extent of addressing what the optimum switch would be, but at least doing a scoping of what pathways the country would take to an evidence-informed approach on switching to e-mobility. And that was a back and forth from, I think, 2020. We had, this is how long some of these things take. And it's a huge group that was involved in this. I think Uganda has a mobility think tank that was heavily pushing this under the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. So we had some amendment where electric vehicles received tax incentive zero duty in 2023. We also had incentives for the companies, and that has really driven up the acceleration from, I think 2020, we had about 115 electric motorcycles, and at the moment they are closing in on the 3,000 mark. The other one is the developing of the air quality standards for the country, where I was on the scientific development, the scientific advisory committee, and this was driven by government under the National Environmental Management Authority. This also was a process that took about 4 years, but finally last year this was signed off. And just a call to action for all of us. I think within society we need to have those bold transformations to address these systemic risks like air pollution that cross-cut within society. The strength of our societies lie within the weakest links. So air pollution is transboundary. If you say, okay, let me try to sort it in my home and not sort it in the next home, the person next to you or next city will pollute, and then those pollutants will be blown to your compound. A case in point where we had fires in Canada, and then New York was the one receiving the cloud. So we need to sort out the weakest links, and we've seen those things within the pandemic, within immigration, those contentious issues. I think the weakest link shows how strong we are. We need to increase the partnerships between policy research, the community, and also involve the media on how to communicate these things. Some of the ways I communicate air pollution now is different from 6 years ago, because I've managed to interact with the media, I've managed to interact with policymakers. So we need to increase these partnerships. Examine what existing research is there and how is it being communicated. Are we communicating like we're communicating in an academic conference? We need to really be sure that the research that is there, the little information that is there, is being communicated in a way that is easily absorbed and understood by the beneficiaries of the information. And also air pollution, it's causing all these sorts of challenging issues within the cities, but there are success stories, and it's good to share success stories. I don't think we should be afraid to share, these success stories. And whichever knowledge we get on this subject, I think it's really important that we use it to spark action. Going on to the previous presentation by Desmond, we need to demand action, to spark action, not only at local level, but also at strategic level. Thank you very much, and happy to interact with anyone and also listen to the questions. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. So we would move on to the third presenter. So the third presenter is Julian, who is a dedicated civil engineer in the water resources sector and a passionate climate action enthusiast, proficient in using GIS for climate action initiatives. She's also a dedicated research and advocacy team member at Policy Square. Driven by a deep commitment to sustainable development, she passionately leads climate action campaigns aimed at fostering environmental health and resilience. As an ardent advocate for cleaner air in Kampala, Uganda, she recently undertook a challenging 60-kilometer run equipped with an air monitor to expose the city's hidden air pollution crisis. Over to you, Julian.
Public sphere mainly is, I'll start with talking about public sphere as I share my screen. So it's an East African think tank that it fosters debate in policy making and the like. You can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Just a minute. So it's basically an East African think tank and civil society organization dedicated to organizing people, fostering debate, and mobilizing intellectual capital in order to improve shared social political conditions. So we're mainly dealing about 4 categories, that is public accountability and policy making, climate justice, entrepreneurship, and innovation, and civic education. So mainly in this presentation, I'll be concentrating on the first 3. Yes, the science. I understand the science given my background of civil engineering and all, but we need to move away from the science. We need to get the people on ground, the local people in the markets, talking about these numbers and what they present.
Julian, sorry to interrupt you. Are you able to make your presentation full screen?
Okay, just a minute.
Thank you. Just so that we make sure we're not missing any of your information on the screen.
Oh, let's see. Is it better now? Okay, no.
I think if you go above by slideshow and then you say maybe under slideshow. That's definitely better. We can see it a little bit better, but it should be on that tab across there. It says slideshow, and then you can say from current slide.
Slideshow from current slide. Where is that?
And then at the very beginning of that, it says from beginning or from current slide, under file home to the left.
File.
Yes, right there. From current slide.
Or I don't know if I can share my slide.
Oh, perfect. I was about to say that. So let me.
But you don't waste time.
Yeah. So share. Perfect. So continue, Julian, please.
Yeah, so I hope everyone got an idea of what public square actually is. So you can move to the next slide, please. So one thing I would want our scientists to put in our mind is that it's really not about the science in the end. It's about justice in communities and turning this invisible pollution into undeniable proof that everyone can own up the data. They can understand if, for example, next slide. So here, I think about a week ago, our data, our campaign, the Kampala Breeders campaign that was mentioned in the first slide, made the headline of one of the biggest newspapers in the nation, the Daily Monitor. So our approach is that when a market vendor looks at this kind of a newspaper, they can see the results. They can see that PM 2.5, for example, of my area, which is, let's say, Boyogere, is 215. They can relate with their daily life. They can relate it with their health. They can relate it to their, maybe why their child is coughing at night, why they have to visit a doctor every month because they have respiratory issues. Next slide. So here I'm just really talking about the science that the past presenters have talked about. The data, how many deaths happen every year in our cities because of our air. For example, in Uganda, over 14,000 people die. So this is a timely event, timely webinar, and timely call to action for us all because the data is undeniable anymore. So, next slide. Next slide, please. So here I'm just telling you why, for example, I decided to become an air quality advocate. According to this ranking, and I think even in Okello's slides, this was the same ranking. Kampala has the second dirtiest air in our cities in Africa. So everyone should be passionate about getting the papers off our desks and trying to get on ground and helping even people who have never stepped into school own up this data so that collectively we can demand for solutions that are that, for example, are feasible in those given communities, and also that we can ensure continuity of solutions because we need to save the planet for our children. So next slide, please. So we realize, like the past presenters have already said, that there is an awareness and policy gap. A study done by one of our colleagues, Melina, revealed that, for example, people in Kampala do not understand or do not really relate environmental degradation to air pollution. Yes, they can see the waste burning, they can experience floods sometimes, but air quality is not really owned up as should be. Yet it is a very serious something that we need to put into perspective, given that we live by the air we breathe. We cannot be able to really do anything else if we are unable to breathe comfortably and be healthy. So the public's perception of air quality is still lacking, and that's why organizations like Public Square comes in to teach the people on ground, to people who have never entered any classroom really, to help them understand what this data reveals. Then part of our organization arms is in policy making, and so we have campaigns under policy making. So the policy action gap, reaching out to our leaders. In fact, in our Kampala Brilliance campaign, one of our plans is to engage, given that we are in election period time. Our members of parliament are on ground, they are in their villages, they are in their constituencies. So we want to organize something where we move with, let's say, an MP of Makinde division in Kampala. He's looking around for votes. We take advantage of that opportunity and talk to people in his constituency around air. So now their MP knows about air quality. The individuals also know about the air quality. So if this individual is asking them to give him votes so that he can go back into power, they have more to ask from him aside really the roads, the schools. They can also demand that that policies for cleaner air are put into perspective. Next slide, please. So here I'm just talking about really our campaign and how we have been going about it. So we have monitors that are really, they are small and someone can really tie it on their running gear, can tie it on their border. So it is a participatory action research framework. We give these monitors to runners around Kampala, to border riders around Kampala. So these individuals, people have never gone to school, by the way. They just have a monitor, they know how to switch it on, they have a phone, they have an app, they collect the data themselves. So these people own the data, but remember this border is not alone. He has a whole stage of maybe 20, 30 more. So he collects this data throughout the day. At the end of the day, we get together and we break down. We tell him this is what it means. You've breathed over 20 cigarettes throughout your day. And of course, to some it's shocking because some do not smoke, some do not smoke. So, and our approach is we relate the data they have collected to their daily living, that is to their health, to one study we really related our data to was how it affects our daily, for example, our purchases. So we relate the data to how it causes dementia in old age, or the premature births. And coincidentally, there is a time we're sharing our data that was done by some colleagues, and the Nile Post, it's also a news platform. They had posted about the premature babies in ginger police. And coincidentally, there is a study we had read about where air quality is related to premature babies. So these things are timely. You're telling them about air quality, and you're also relating to what other news outlets are saying about premature babies. So it becomes relatable data. And if they are seeking for solutions or better policies, they are from an informed point of view. Next slide, please. But also we don't want to come off as though we are the founders of this. Really, UrbanBetter has been doing this. We are just building from a model that has proven to work, a model that we trust should really be adopted by even more organizations, so that we get the science papers off the desk and dust them, and we let the people own up the data and come up with solutions that really matter. Next slide. So here, these are just a few colleagues of us really doing. I think the one on the right was the very first. Ideally, we are new to this work. I could say two months now, yeah. But on the next slides, you're going to see our reach. Our reach is really great, which implies that we can actually have the solutions coming up on ground and moving, and there can be continuity of the solutions if we if we share them with the people on ground. Next slide. So usually when we do a campaign, let's say a border man, let me use that engine of the city, engine of the city, lungs of a coal mine. You see a border guy in that frame. For example, this was data maybe collected by a border person. So we summarize it, we compress it so that it fits on the. It's like we compress it and just fix it on just a small poster like that, so that it is readable. Because we are going to admit that people are lazy readers, and even those who have not gone to school are even lazier readers. So we compress this data into understandable numbers, relate it to their daily life, just put it on a small poster like that, and share it out there on our social media platforms, on LinkedIn, X, and the like. Yeah, so every time we do a campaign, this is how we go about it. Next slide. So here I'm just showing you our reach. In fact, these are old stats, because this could be data from maybe 2.5 weeks back. But when we started our campaign, within 3 weeks, we had reached more than 1 million people on platforms. Of course, the highest number being people in Kampala and the neighboring countries, Kenya, Tanzania, Nairobi, and Tanzania. But this shows you that once you bring the data, break it down into understandable bits, people own it up and push it further to relevant authorities, and then that's how we can get to the solutions, because the solutions exist. It's undeniable. So but we need to first have these people understanding, what are you telling us? What do you mean PM 2.5 is 300? How does it relate to my daily life? Once they understand that, then collectively we shall have solutions happening all over Africa and the globe. Next slide. Also here, I think I'm just telling you really how far we have gone, and which is mainly our reach, and how many people have come up and are willing to join these campaigns. We have construction companies wanting to join the campaign, because all of us know that construction companies are part of part of why our air quality is bad, the PM 2.5, they contribute to it. So if we have contributors joining such campaigns, then so we start to look for solutions collectively and that are implementable. Next slide. So call to action. Mainly, we look at engaging policymakers. I already told you how we plan on bringing policymakers on board. Literally organizing campaigns with them in their constituencies. On our team, we have researchers, Dorothy, Melina, and many more that aside all the research they are doing, they are not going to pile their papers and put them on a desk to pile dust. No, they come on ground and pass on this science to the common man. And really together we shall have a cleaner Africa. Next slide. I think that is it from me. So, Okello Gabriel, I think you need to add this onto the ongoing initiatives. It's really, it's something that is really going faster than we expected. Our reach is really big, which speaks so much about the Citizen Science Initiative. So, of course, I have to give kudos to UrbanBetter for such. Organizing such webinars and also for other events like the one in Nairobi last week to help to bring together scientists so that we brainstorm on how better we can have this data on ground and citizens owning up the data plus the solutions. Thank you for listening in.
Thank you so much, Julian. And I think this is the perfect I would say, segue to the UrbanBetter coordinators from Lagos, Accra, and Nairobi. So first off would be Waziri. He's an environmentalist and economist, currently bridging the air quality data gap across Africa with UrbanBetter by measuring, analyzing, creating awareness, educating citizens about the dangers of air pollution, and putting together reports and policy recommendations for policymakers and all relevant stakeholders via youth-focused citizen science and data-informed advocacy. Over to you, Waziri.
Hi, everyone. Please, Ada, confirm that you can hear me.
Your sound was not too clear.
Can you hear me now?
It's better now.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I mean, maybe the internet connection. But yeah, I mean, thank you to everyone that have spoken. Thank you, Julian. When I saw that you did a 60 kilometer, I was in ill, and I was looking forward to seeing you at Nairobi. Unfortunately, you weren't able to make it. But yeah, I saw Herbert, and he made a wonderful presentation. And it's a good work that Public Square is doing in Kampala, Uganda. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you, Desmond, also. I was sitting down here thinking to myself that from our presentations, you know what strata of air quality management that we are on. You know, Desmond talking about funding, Gabriel research, and you have heard from Julian now, you know, doing the work on ground. Can you see my slide also?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to say anything about myself anymore. That has done a great job. That is all there is. Okay. I need to put my on slide. Yeah. Just a minute, please. Anyways, UrbanBetter is, yes, UrbanBetter Citizens is the civic arm of UrbanBetter as a whole. You know, we have the research and we have the academy, but then, you know, I'm basically talking about the citizens and what we are doing. You know, we are youth-led, data-informed, and then we combined citizen science with physical activity, you know, to increase the demand. Like Desmond was saying, there's limited demand, you know, for air quality action in Africa, and that's one of the problems. So we have come to fill in that gap. Of course, there's need for more people to do that. But basically, that is what UrbanBetter Citizens is. And above and beyond that, we hope to enhance youth participation, in decision making. It is beyond demanding for clean air. It is actually engaging decision makers. So, we try to take it a step further to actually take these things to the front of the decision makers and make our demands. So yeah, I'm just going to be talking about the solution basically. I have some things that have been listed here, and then first on the list is transport basically. So I'll be talking about the actions that we are supposed to actually take to address the air quality issues across Africa. And the first thing right there is talking about transportation. What can we do? And I'm talking about the Lagos example particularly because I have other speakers that are going to be speaking after me, and I'm sure we share similar problems. So that's why I added the Lagos example. Lagos, for instance, we will talk about modernizing and expanding the public transport. People that are familiar with Lagos or know Lagos will know that there's a lot of these commercial buses that we call danfos, yellow buses that bring out a lot of emissions. If these buses can be regulated and the bus rapid transit system that is more of a mass transit, if it can be expanded, expanded routes and more buses, it's going to reduce the number of the emissions on the road because we have lesser of these small danfo buses. In fact, if these buses can be gradually phased out, it will go a long way in reducing the emission in Lagos State. Also, infusing NMT, non-motorized transport. And these are the things that we are pushing in Lagos as UrbanBetter Citizens. During our advocacy, we talk about these things and organize events that speak to these things. Because in Lagos, for instance, you find that there's limited to no NMT infrastructures. No cycle lanes, no dedicated walking paths. I mean, little or none at all. So that's one of the ways. And then the second thing I have here is actually phasing out dirty fuels and promoting clean energy. It is important to state that while this is what is desired, there's a huge work to be done here by decision makers and, should I say, funders, because we know that this is what we want. We want to phase out dirty fuel, but are the alternatives cheap? These are the issues. From our advocacy effort, we have seen that people are not averse to using clean energy, but it is not readily accessible and available. And for me personally, one of my concerns is how sustainable is this thing? Okay, if we all move to maybe using maybe LPG or any other renewable source, is it really sustainable in the long run? So when we are talking about phasing out these things, let's think about how we can help people transition, to using clean energy. And then, yeah, the next thing is what has been spoken about a lot, which is investing in air quality monitoring. And I want to talk about collaboration as it concerns this, because one of the things I noticed from the Clean Air Forum is not explicitly stated, but it's like some people view the work that they are doing as me against you. People that using static sensor are looking at just what they are doing. It speaks to doing things in silos also, and then they are more or less thinking, what are the people doing citizen science? The people using citizen science, like, what are they doing? But all these things are very important, because even when these people are talking about static air quality monitoring sensors and even reference grids, there is a gap, especially in Africa. And the gap is that we don't have enough what's it called now? Air quality monitoring network. There's this spatial loss of data, and that is what citizen science can cover. I mean, there's issue about accuracy of data coming in from very low cost sensors. But then it is giving us the figure. I mean, my air quality monitoring sensor have consistently told me, for instance, that the air quality in Lagos mainland is different from the air quality in Lagos Island. When you get into Bodilon and Ikoyi, anybody again that is familiar with Lagos can know these things. That's what we are doing this year. We've been running the Lagos City Marathon route, and it cuts from mainland to the island, right? And then you consistently see the difference. And then physically, you can see that in the island, these yellow buses I'm telling you about, colorful buses, are not allowed to ply that place. The houses are more spacious, and there are more trees in these places. So even with my very low cost air quality monitoring sensor, it is consistent. I can see this thing, and you can actually see it physically. So it is important we, invest in air quality monitoring, because honestly, we still have a long way to go in terms of ground monitoring. And of course, we can't rely totally on, satellite monitoring. So one of the things is investing in air quality monitoring and taking citizen science serious. And then the next on my slide is strengthening environmental regulations and enforcement. Just like, Desmond was talking, and he said, it's not like the political will is not there, but there's no political will to act. We have a lot of laws and regulations concerning air quality monitoring, climate change. They are just not being properly enforced. And I think it speaks to what Desmond has said. That is the will to now act. Right. Otherwise, the will is there. They go to these seminars, they hear these things, and they even sign to some pledges. So these are one of the ways that we can address the air quality issues in Africa, by strengthening enforcement and regulations. And the last point I have on my slide is what I think everyone have touched on, both the researchers like Gabriel, the funders like Desmond, and of course, people doing groundwork like Julian, which is community education and grassroots engagement. And this is what I'm usually very proud of and happy about as it concerns UrbanBetter, because I can beat my chest that we have now opened the eyes of a lot of Lagosians to what air quality is. Desmond said something that is limited insight on air quality, and he's very correct. When you keep climate change and keep air quality, people know more about climate change and not air quality, even though they share the same sources, like a win against air pollution is a win against climate change. But I can beat my chest that UrbanBetter have done a lot, in Lagos. Of course, I mean, there's a need for to be done. We can't do everything. There are more grounds to be covered, but we have sensitized, a lot of community members, athletes, because we deal a lot with athletes, here in Lagos State, combining sport with what we do, students, and then building capacity of people, It starts from the little things, like telling people what the color code means. Not everybody is scientific, and Julian made reference to this. We need to bridge the gap between the science and what it is, to the community level. How are they going to understand this? So starting from things like color code, and then people are beginning to pick up words like carbon emission, carbon dioxide, all these terms about air quality, and these things really matter. So these are the 5 ways that I've summarized that we can address air quality issues in Africa, and I'm giving the Lagos examples because I want other people to have things to say, talk about their cities also. So yeah, thank you. I'm going to leave this here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Waziri. So I would move on to Accra with Lord Offei-Darko. He moves between the worlds of advocacy and research, and he possesses extensive knowledge in various ecosystems, such as environmental governance. He has, for over the past 3 years, Lord has been working to bridge the gap between international decisions on issues such as climate change with the reality on ground. He is one of the young African scientists who advocated with UrbanBetter to drive further regional environmental policies, contributing to 2022's International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies at COP27. Over to you, Lord.
Thank you, Ada, for the nice introduction. So moving straight forward, I'm actually very happy my colleague Waziri was actually able to conclude on that note, the holistic approach to solving the issues such as equality. So I saw the introduction, the webinar preview, and I was like, this is one of the opportunity for me to voice out what you're actually experiencing once again on the ground. So the title of my presentation, that's Youth Advocacy as a Tool for Addressing Equality. So quickly, I'll give a brief introduction, span out some problems, aims and approaches which we can use, youth advocacy to solve the issues such as equality, how these outcomes will actually look like if we apply this approach, and a brief call to action. So yes, to begin with, we all know that youth is one of the largest populations and the most dynamic in Africa. And if we really want to solve a problem, it's the largest population force we should actually be looking at. This is the number that can actually make the difference. And in associating this to the advocacy topic, that's mobilizing communities to demand for policies for not just, but then various environmental issues such as cleaner air. So if you want to mobilize communities to demand for policies, as Mr. Desmond mentioned earlier on, that there's a need for the demand, right? Then it's the youth you should actually be looking at. You should be harnessing the power of these young ones who have the largest population and are the most dynamic. So moving on. Yes. So yes, the problem. Not to discredit science, but then as a practitioner environmentalist, I believe the social aspect of things should always be should always be taken into consideration. So with the problem, I'm just going to ask you to imagine that if the issue of equality is actually viewed within a social lens, how would it actually look like? Starting with the socioeconomic challenges that we actually face. As for UrbanBetter Accra Citizens Hub, we actually do grassroots level advocacy. We engage with people on the ground. And when we actually get there to interact with these people, I'm sorry, they do not say their lack of senses, or maybe they speak socioeconomic challenges. The people who face the challenge, looking at this picture, so this is a picture taken at, we have a place in Ghana where, e-waste is processed in a local way. And these young men who are exposed to these dangers, they know, they are rational, they know it's affecting their health, but they believe that's what they have to do to live, that's what they have to do to survive. So with the issue of equality, it's something I always want to voice out. Well, I'm not an equality specialist, but then as I said earlier, as an environmentalist, the social aspect to issues should actually be taken into consideration as much as the scientific aspect. We also have policy gaps, climate and youth. Once again, as mentioned by Mr. Desmond, it's quite void, considering our Ghana National Climate Change Policy. If you want to look at marginalized individuals who are being affected by the air quality issue, that's considering the Ghana National Youth Policy, which is actually focused on, or has the right of climate change related issues impacting young people here in Ghana. You realize that there's equally a wide divide as well. So as I was saying, so this is a research I actually took somewhere last year, but was published somewhere in January, and it was just an assessment, right, of the youth policy that we are actually talking about and its impact on challenges such as youth climate justice. Air quality can be seen within the subset of climate change as well. There's some form of relation as well. So just using this as part of the broader discussion, and you realize that there's actually a wide gap. There are not much details of approaches and how issues such as air quality or other climate change related issues can be solved or even improved upon by people who face the challenge or marginalized individuals such as the youth. So yes, it's quite the issue of policy gaps. From my personal research, it's quite obvious that yes, there are some gaps we actually have to close. So moving on, aim. What do we actually want to achieve if we use youth advocacy as a tool for addressing equality? Because and once again, I'm happy we have researchers, donors here on the panel as well. If you actually use the youth approach, you actually invest in long-term solutions. That's one. Two, as I said earlier, we are the largest population. So if you want to create demand for something, then that is the right population you should actually be aiming at. Also, these young ones or the youth are also the most vulnerable to the challenges of air quality. From domestic girls, or at the domestic level, we have young girls using the coal pot to cook who are exposed to the smoke. We also have the majority of the, with the, when you go to our bar stations, local bar stations, probably sometimes the drivers are old, but then most of the time the maids are youth. They are the ones who are always within the station shouting, loading, and inhaling the emissions at actually a larger rate. So yes, this is what we actually aim to do. And can youth advocacy cause change? And I believe it can. And I always say the precision advocacy model we use as the UrbanBetter Citizens is actually it feels like I had been in the advocacy phase for some time until I got introduced to my role and I got introduced to this model. I felt like things were being done wrongly. Because this particular model, it's not just the scientific aspect of data collection and the citizen science approach, but then the fact that there's an aspect where you have to go down to the community level and engage with these people and let them know what's actually going on. And I feel like that gives actually more impact at the grassroots level and makes the approach to solving air quality holistic, considering the fact that we are adding both the scientific and then the social approach in the problem solving. And some of the things we do, that's awareness campaigns through social media, school programs, art and music, to educate peers and communities. We apply citizen science as well, using low-cost air quality sensors to collect and share data through capacity building. Policy engagement is also a social aspect, right? Lobbying local governments to enforce pollution laws is actually a social aspect. It's also a social approach through the youth advocacy channel, which could actually help solve or address the issue of air quality. And community action at large, we mobilizing ourselves to actually solve a problem. That's creating more demand through the social lens. So yes, this is just a brief case study, pictorial images of how youth advocacy can address air pollution. So these are some of the citizens you have here, showcasing or lobbying or showcasing what they actually found out on ground to some of the policymakers, letting them know what's actually happening on the ground. Quite interesting. And they are like, you young people, anytime you get to these policymakers, they are like, wow, you young people are always doing a lot. And this is Mr. Eric Nuyama. He's the director for the Millennium Marathon. And he was like, indeed, you young ones can actually foster change, as being said. So here are some of the campaigns we're actually engaging with our placards, the citizen science approach down there at the bottom left, collecting data with our sensors and our citizens app. And then that's also me there with the public health director of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, just presenting to her and letting her know what's actually going on in the Accra metropolis. So yes, this is an approach. This is something that can cause real change, indeed. And if we actually use the youth advocacy approach, this is some of the outcomes that we can actually get. The demand will be created. There will be public awareness. People will start caring about the environment. And it's an aspect of what's actually happening in Accra with our youth, whereby they're actually owning the issues. They're actually owning the issues and they're actually caring about them, right? Letting people know that what they're actually doing is wrong, right? Desisting from activities such as open burning on the individual level. It's through this that would actually get to the communal level and probably get to the national and global level at large. Also, local governments will be influenced to prioritize air pollution control because that's the government for you. They move with pressure. They want the heat. You push them, they get it done. They are for the people. So if the people are requesting for this, then they would actually do it for them. So it makes advocacy a very tangible aspect of this problem called air quality. And also there will be enough generated data through the citizen science approach we actually use as the Accra Citizens Hub. There will be enough data generated to support policy. And also, innovation will also be inspired. Knowing that we want to solve the problem. Youth, fresh mind, always ready to make change. This could actually foster innovation in this way through various means such as entrepreneurship, through cleaner technologies and all that. So yes, being on time, a call to action. I'll urge all of us to join an impactful youth-led network, because those networks are more populated and are more active. Also, you can always start a project at the individual level. You could always join a campaign. If you do not want to start something, join something, share your idea, go for workshop, contribute, speak. And also, if I would like to end my presentation with this, raising more awareness about youth impact, right? Youth-led approaches to doing stuff. It's an investment for long-term sustainability, long-term problem solving, not just in the near 5 years, but then we speak of 30 to 40 years, because if you find a 20-year-old boy to do something, yes, death is inevitable, but then you should know that what you are actually impacting that young man to do is something that's going to run for the next 40 to 50 years. Because he's actually young, there's more time for him to learn more. And as he's doing, he's actually learning. So yes, in conclusion, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. And I hope my presentation has actually shed some light on some aspects that I think was not really being addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lord. It really was an insightful presentation. So I'll move on to Maryam, who will give us some info about the Nairobi hub. Maryam Wangeshi is a trained architect dedicated to advocating for sustainable urban development. At the Nairobi UrbanBetter Citizens Hub, where she's the coordinator, she leads the Citizens for Clean Air initiative, working alongside a network of young people dedicated to reclaiming control of their urban future. Her role in the education working group at the Kenya Green Building Society further underscores her dedication to embedding sustainability into the core of urban development education. She drives impactful campaigns through initiatives such as as a C40 Cities Youth Hub member, and she's also active in the African Cities Lab, as well as serving in the Energy and Sustainability Department at UN Habitat. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Adudo. And I appreciate this opportunity. I've already learned a lot from my fellow panelists and my fellow colleagues at UrbanBetter. Yeah, so I was just turning on my video for you to be sure that it's not a bot presenting, it's me, but allow me to turn off the video.
So Maryam, your slide is showing my video. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah, because I'm presenting the screen. Okay, let me just, yeah, okay. Let me present. Okay. Yes, so like Adudo said, I serve as the coordinator at the Nairobi Citizens Hub. So really today I'll be presenting the work we've done as a hub together with the RAND leaders. And actually this presentation is almost similar to the one I presented last week at the Clean Air Forum. For those who might be here, they'll be hearing some of the things I said last week. But really what I emphasized is the fact that, and what most of the panelists have mentioned, you only inherit or you're only entitled to what exists. And as we go forward with the way we are going with the rapid urbanization, clean air might not be so much of a guarantee. And at Nairobi, the Nairobi Citizens Hub, the young people that I work with have understood that even as we try to deliver a solution to this crisis, the community must be on board. So that's why as we go for our activations, like my fellow colleagues mentioned, we ensure that they are aware, because as we are going into their neighborhoods. It's their territory, so they're aware that you're not just coming here with gadgets. And in this era, everyone is suspicious. If you just go in and you walk in with a sensor, it can be for anything. So you need to talk to them and assure them that, okay, this is what we are trying to do, so that you can invite trust, even as you try to bring in solutions. The citizens themselves are the ones in charge of this action. And as you can see, I've attached a screenshot of our community called the Nairobi UrbanBetter Citizens. It's a WhatsApp group. So here we have discussions where the members, who we call citizens, who are just essentially residents who want to do something about their city, they share their thoughts. So for one young person here, he's just attached an AI video showing how the future could look like. All of us working with air pumps if we are not careful. Another young person has shared how his experience walking along a certain avenue in Nairobi was terrible. The dust, the air that's brown, the poor smell. So we believe that this platform empowers the citizens to talk about their issues. We talk about communicating. So we stand a risk of having this communication become top down. So it's us just sharing this information, but really from the citizens we get a lot of valuable information that informs action. Another thing we've observed even as we do our activations, and so far we've done 2 major activations, and most of our themes were centered around the contrasts in Nairobi. So you have some areas that are like, people know Nairobi is a green city, under the sun. While that might be the case, there are some areas, we know that Nairobi has the largest slum in Africa called Kibera. So we have lush forests, green avenues, we have the Karura forest, we have a national park at the center of the city, but we also have informal settlements that contrast that. So in our action, we try to bring out these inequalities. So these inequalities are, they touch in terms of spatial, how people experience their spaces, the air they breathe. And while we do have this data, from various institutions, they might not be so clear. The inequalities don't come out that clearly. And so that's why, as my colleagues have mentioned, we have a training where the young people understand how to use these tech gadgets, how they can organize such activities. And one unique thing I like to mention with the Nairobi Hub is we hosted the first Citizens Assembly on Clean Air. So this was essentially a platform to bring together not just experts, but general public. And the general public were not people we know. It was a civic lottery process. So what this meant is we did it at random. We put out an application, people applied, and the only criteria we used is diverse sub-counties, so we can get a diverse population from different parts of Nairobi. And as you can see in the slides, people were able to share their lived realities, and all we did was guide the discussion, following themes of maybe the types of pollution, what are your experiences, what are the solutions you like to see. So really just highlights, and then the participants got to say much more than we say to them. In the morning session, though, we had experts just share what they do in their initiatives. So we had representatives from Clean Air Fund in Kenya. We had people from the Nairobi County, from government, just share their expertise as a way of, knowledge sharing and capacity building of some sorts. We also ensured that we equip the participants with some form of political literacy, because as much as we talk, we need to ensure that people know that they have a part to play, or all hope is not lost. So we mentioned to them that these insights that they bring about will be channeled into the Nairobi County Air Quality Action Plan. that the county is currently formulating. We also assured them that their insights will be presented at the Clean Air Forum, which I did on their behalf last week, so that people feel that what they say really ties into the bigger picture. Yeah, so like my colleagues mentioned, we are all about evidence. As much as we act, we need to be grounded on, our facts and numbers. So we use our sensors. We also liaise with experts who are also doing the same thing. UrbanBetter alone cannot generate all the data. So like in Nairobi, we have a lot of monitors that have been deployed, 40 monitors to be exact, just last month, all over Nairobi. So we build on each other's data. We also have one run leader here was presenting. So before we did the assembly, we had targeted activations, one around an industrial zone in Nairobi, another one around a zone where we could collect transport emission data. So while we collect this data, it's based on evidence, and we also share this to them. And we also give the participants a chance to share their stories. We also had a futuring session, so a foresight training for them to envision themselves in 2045. I believe it was 2045 or 2052. So once they get a chance to envision themselves in 2052, they can then guide based on where we are now, what we want to retain with what's happening now, and what we want to see in the future. So these were some of the action points that they mentioned, and we'll be sharing the reports from the assembly. Adudu, I can share it with you. These are some of their responses on what they want to see going forward. So, for example, having a mechanism of monitoring and reviewing local policies, having radical financing into climate technology, that fits into lived realities. For example, we do encourage people to use clean cooking, but the woman who is cooking may be next to a factory, and that's the affordable means for her to cook, maybe for the factory workers. If you offer the option of clean cooking, is it affordable to her? Is it something feasible? Yeah, so practical financing of clean technology. Those are some of the options. I'll share this presentation for you to see some of them in detail. So at this juncture, I'd also like to invite you to join our community. And my call to action will be, as much as we're exchanging knowledge in this platform, it's important to honor our context. So we might see something and feel like, wow, this is amazing, but you take it to Ghana and no one wants it here, as much as it sounds good. So local ownership is essential, and participatory planning is important. As I finalize, I'll also like to highlight that as we go forward in Nairobi County, like I mentioned, there is an action plan, which the UrbanBetter Nairobi Citizens Hub is part of the committee drafting it. Just last week, we met to critique the first draft of the action plan 2025-2029. And Nairobi is focusing on 5 emission areas: waste management, transport, construction, urban agriculture, and industry. And I think I remember Desmond saying, how collaboration is important. Exactly, because like we can see, different sectors are contributing, to the air pollution crisis. So while there is need for targeted approaches, collaboration is also very key. Lastly, at the Nairobi Hub, we have an online petition that we created, that we also shared the code during the Citizens Assembly. There's a physical petition which people signed, and we also have an online petition for people to keep having their voice heard in whatever manner. It can be a statement of what they feel about this crisis. Yeah, and I believe as we go forward, this crisis cannot be solved by one party alone. The solution is definitely will only be successful if we co-create and come together as different stakeholders. Yes, thank you so much. Back to you, Adudo.
Thank you so much. I know we're running behind times. So I would call on John Okwaro to quickly give his 10-minute presentation. He is the head of environment at Vihiga Municipality, where he drives sustainability and climate action, and he's also the founder of the Center for Sustainable Mining, Environment, and Climate Change. He's a PhD candidate in environmental engineering, where he's focusing on modeling methane emissions from dump sites using satellite data and machine learning. So, and afterwards we'll have Q&A. We'll limit it to about 2 questions and then we close. Over to you, John. John, are you there?
I did see him on earlier. I'm not sure if he's having connectivity issues.
Yes, I noticed that as well, that he was having connectivity issues. Okay, while we're here, maybe we could take a couple of questions and hopefully John may be able to join. So the first question comes from Pauline, who is asking, Lord, what is the place of online petitions as part of youth advocacy? Have you found these to be effective?
Yes, I actually have. This was one of the major points within my presentation, but then, and due to time, I just jumped over not to highlight. So I have had instances whereby, so I'm actually more into, I do a lot more research in, coastal areas, coastal communities, and there has been instances whereby a coalition, right, of youth in all continents came up to write a declaration for a UN Ocean Conference. And then at this declaration, that's at the recent one, there was the French president was there, was hosted in French, and then there were quite a couple of government policies. And then at that particular instance, 3 policy agreements were signed with possible funding initiatives at that particular instance as a result of such a published declaration. This is one of the major, and it's like through a declaration, a wide number of people can actually be connected to raise their voices. It's something that's inevitable. So in summary, this is a very good point, a very good question she asked. And yes, it does make a huge difference.
Thank you so much. And the second question is on indoor versus outdoor air pollution. What is the low-hanging fruit? We do have that statistic of 1.1 million people, but it's skewed towards indoor pollution causing the greater number of deaths. So where do you see as the low-hanging fruit? Is it better clean energy to really reduce as a way to reduce air pollution in cities? Anyone could answer that, perhaps Waziri, because he talked a little bit about that.
Okay, thank you, Ada. Confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay. I am going to say the really low-hanging fruit is how we can adapt. Because, like I said, when we are talking about transitioning, it is really difficult because it involves a lot of economic cost. So it's really about how we can adaptability. For instance, when we go out for our advocacy, we tell people if you are cooking and the kitchen is smoking, you try to open your window and don't stay in the kitchen. If you have already put what you are cooking on the stove or whatever, don't stay in the kitchen. Leave the kitchen for some moment and just go from time to time to check. You understand? So the really low-hanging fruit, I would say, is adaptability with what we have at the moment. Before we're able to easily transition to clean energy, what can we do? How can we adapt with what we have? And that is it for me, basically, for indoor air pollution. So it is it is open your windows. It is don't stay in the kitchen for long. It is if you have neighbors that they are because sometimes the indoor air pollution actually comes from outside. You mustn't necessarily be the one that's producing it. It may be that you have a neighbor that the generator is really very smoky and the smoke is entering your room. It's a matter of going to try to negotiate, like, oh, maybe we can turn this to face somewhere else, or you service your generator. So for me, really, the low-hanging fruit are the things we can do to adapt with what we are facing at the moment before we talk about, we can keep talking about transition before we fully transition into clean energy. While we are looking for the solution, let's look for ways to adapt. And yeah, it starts from like these three things I've mentioned. I'll leave it for anyone else if there's anything to add. Yeah. Ada, your mic is mute. Ada.
Realize that. Okay, over to you. Let me stop sharing.
All right. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is John Okwaro. Just as you can see on the screen, I'm a director of environment to the Higa municipality. I'm also the CEO at Center for Sustainable Mining, Environment and Climate Change. You can visit our website at CESMAC. We are most on environmental sustainability, and so we do capacity building. We also do some projects and so on and so forth. So you can visit our website to see some of the courses that we offer. Just at $200 to be able to undertake a course that will help you in your endeavors. Yeah, so other than that, I'm also a PhD student at Taita Taveta University in collaboration with the University of Applied Science Dresden in Germany. So my thesis or my project, my PhD project is on quantification of methane emissions, not just quantification, but quantification and modeling methane emissions from the Dandora dam site. So and at the beginning of my research, so I've been doing some literature review to just look at what has been happening in this area. And so my methodology includes the use of satellite data and also ground-based measurements to be able to know how much methane is being emitted from the Dandora dam site. So what I'm going to present is just a snippet of what I intend to do. So this just, I was just looking at satellite data and trying to make something out of it to see, maybe to just get a view of how much methane emissions are being emitted from the dam site. But of course, satellite data or satellites are usually very limited. We shall talk about that. So it's just a preparation as I plan to visit the site and do the ground-based measurements to know exactly what is taking place at the Dandora dam site. All right, so I'm going to look at some of the satellite data and just the trend, and then make an inference. So global waste production has nearly tripled since 1965, that is pre-industrial period. reaching about 2 billion tons per year in 2016. I think I should update that so that I can put the values for 2025. So because of urbanization, and this is taking place at a high rate, especially in Africa, we expect that we shall have more waste in future. So close to 70% of waste currently ends up in landfills or dumping sites. In Africa, we have less landfills and more open dump sites, where anaerobic decomposition of organic material produces methane and other gases like carbon dioxide. But the landfill gas, the larger percent of it is methane emissions. So methane is a short-lived but potent greenhouse gas. So though it is short-lived and not much of it is in the atmosphere, its effect of the global warming potential is high. So it accounts for about 30% of current positive warming taking place. So deep and rapid reduction in global anthropogenic methane emissions are essential to keep warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius, value that Paris Agreement is trying to attain. So currently, methane emissions from solid waste amount to 38 million tons per year and could reach 60 million tons annually by 2050. So though currently we have less methane emissions in the atmosphere as compared to carbon dioxide, the amount of methane in the atmosphere is increasing. So if separation of organic material, treatment with energy recovery, and bans on landfilling organic waste are implemented, then methane emissions from solid waste could be as low as 11 million tons per year by 2050. Satellite instruments enable monitoring of strong methane hotspots, including many strongly emitted urban areas that could include landfills as most prominent sources. Though with satellite data, you may find that those hotspots are not, or sources that are not so strong, they may not be captured by satellite. So we shall talk about that. So we present a survey of methane emissions from the Dandara dam site using high-resolution satellite observations. And in this case, we are looking at the carbon mapper and the greenhouse, the GHG SAT. So we also emphasize how high-resolution satellite observations can help pinpoint where emissions originate within a facility, which often aligns with the area where waste is added. So new waste deposits usually emits more because there's high reaction in terms of the anaerobic reaction. So the objective is to quantify and analyze the trend of methane emissions from the dam site. So this is the dam site located in Embakasi Central sub-county of Nairobi County. Yeah. So the study obtained data from two satellite emissions, that is the GHG SAT and carbon mapper for the period 2020 to 2025. This is a small period to make a meaningful inference, yet we do not have much satellite data on the same. So yeah, so I only got that. And so that is a limitation that only the ground-based measurements can feel or address. So the observations were once in a year, indicating a gap in terms of satellite overpass at the Dandora dam site. And some of these measurements, like the one in 2024, I requested for that, so it was just a directed measurement. So, but you go to Western countries, you find that the satellite overpass is more frequent, so reliable measurements can be made, can be made. So the data obtained was in terms of emissions per hour and plume image. And you can see how
John, the slides are not moving. John, are you there? John? Okay. John has been having issues with connectivity all webinar. And so I'm just wondering what to do now.
Yeah, I think he's dropped off.
Yes, he's been dropping off and on all webinar. So let me see. Okay, he's back here. He's admitted. Hi, John. What are you back in? Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just realized that I was speaking to myself.
Maybe I think maybe
I didn't
what
realize
could
that.
yeah, what could be helpful is if you could go through because of the connectivity issues you're having, if you could go through your presentation in the next 5 minutes, hopefully it holds up
Yeah,
and then
I
we
was actually
can.
finishing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but so I've just joined with my phone. Maybe you could share. And I'm not sure where I had reached. Where I lost you. Are you able to share the presentation?
Yeah, muted, Ada.
Confirm you can see the screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where were we? Where did I drop off? Okay. So not very far. Okay. Yeah. So what you're seeing, those are two plumes that were picked by Carbon Mapper. Yeah. So I just picked them from their website, but I intend to use ArcGIS to try and map that, so that because I'm also interested to know how far those emissions go from the dam site, in terms of where estates, what estates around the dam site are being affected by that. So yes, thank you. So one plume, the smaller one, you can see the emissions in terms of the amount of emission per hour. So you can see you have 228, and that's the coordinate where we find these emissions. So like I said, I intend to map that on the GIS next. And so this the larger plume. You can see the emissions there. The rate of emission is 805 kilograms per hour, and that's the coordinates of the plume. Next. Yeah, so so I looked at also the GHG SAT, to just see how emissions have been in the past. That is from 2022, because that's the data that is available. So you can see in 2022, the GHG SAT, we had 0.89 tons per hour, as emission rate. 2023, we didn't have any emissions, any measurement, because no satellite overpassed that dam site. Then 2024, I requested for the data. You can see in 2024, it was 1.9 tons per hour. And then in 2025, now the carbon mapper was 1.13. So the trend shows that there's an increase in emission. Next. Yeah, so here I just wanted to compare the carbon map and greenhouse, the GHG SAT, and you can see that GHG SAT has high resolution as compared to the carbon mapper. And so, though carbon mapper in this year showed that the emissions were 1.09, it could be more. 1.03, it could be more. So, in short, what I'm saying is that the trend of emissions at the Dandoro dam site is that the rate of emissions is increasing. And so, that is a concern should be a concern for policymakers. Next. Yeah, so the plume shows that the effect of methane emissions spread widely. So it's not just at the dam site, but it spreads widely, and I'm very much interested to know how far. So I'll be doing that also on the ground. So the two plumes partially overlap, suggesting a consecutive release from neighboring cells rather than one isolated leak. So yeah, next. So that indicates that we have several active tipping phases. Generally, where we have more emissions, like I said, that's where we have the tipping phase. And it's because newer waste experiences high reactions or decomposition, which leads to more emissions. Okay, challenges in using satellite for emission monitoring. So you have infrequent overpass. I think I've mentioned that, and we have seen there's a gap in the data. There's also this one is unable. The satellites are unable to detect smaller sources. So what you see, those are major emissions, and when I'll be going there, those are my target first before I move away to other sites. So cloud cover and noise also affect. So where there's cloud, usually you cannot find emissions. Then there's lack of validation. Majorly in Africa, this is a problem, and so I'm trying to solve that problem by going to the ground and doing the actual measurements. So finally, next. So those satellite data offers critical insights, as we have seen, especially in data-scarce urban contexts like Nairobi. The limitation in temporal resolution and spatial sensitivity necessitates complementary strategy. And so just like I've mentioned, that's what I'll be going to do to find out what's the difference between what is on the ground and satellite. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John, for your presentation. And I think the final comments that we have talked about how do we collaborate and just across the board, policymakers, researchers, advocates, and Waziri in the comments said, follow us, send an email. Everyone is open and willing to share knowledge and collaborate on this issue to address air pollution in African cities. So I would like to thank all of you, all our speakers for joining us, and all of you as well for participating in this webinar. And I wish you all a good day and a good year. Take care.
Thank you, Adam, for coordinating this. Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming. Bye.